Hi, it's Alistair from Electric Scotland. I thought the UK general election is on the 12th of this month, but I'd like to put my penny's worth in, you might say. I'm intending to actually keep this video on my site, but I'll also share it on YouTube as well for faster viewing. But I want to kind of make a statement at this stage about my views on where we should be going as a country. Bearing in mind I've been following Brexit tortuously over these last years, and I'm just appalled at what's been going on. I mean, many years ago I was quite okay with being in the EU, but in the last number of years I've been quite upset by the fact that the EU doesn't seem to take Britain into account anymore. And I just think that we've lost a lot of our independence. I mean, we can see that because all the trade deals done by the EU are nothing to do with Britain, basically. And we've just got to suffer from any of their decisions. We don't have any freedom of choice anymore. And they keep bunging tariffs on us, which cost us money. And of course, our trade deficit between Britain and the UK is enormous, huge. So, we need to get our act together and run our own country again, basically. That's not to say we shouldn't have decent relationships with the EU. Of course we should. But, we want to be independent as a country, and we want to be independent with our own laws. We shouldn't be told what to do by a foreign court, essentially, and that's what we're being told by the European Court of Justice. When they rule, they don't rule for Britain's benefit, for sure. So, anyway, I'm going to basically make a statement. I'm going to give you a few things that you might want to try and have a read at. Essentially, what I'm looking at here is, let's see, I made a wee note because there's actually 3 articles I'd like you to read if you can take the time. Now, as you know, I do a Scottish and Scots diaspora newsfeed. I've been doing this for quite some years now, and I add to it every day, and usually there's a week to 2 weeks worth of content within there. So by the end of the second week, I usually delete the second week and start the next week. So there's usually 1 to 2 weeks of news stories. But if you look through the feed this time, and I say go to electricscotland.com, just scroll down a little bit and you'll see Scottish and Scots Diaspora Newsfeed. Click on that and you'll get the feed up. Now, I say there's 3 articles I'd like you to read. One is, the faster we quit the protectionist EU racket, the better. It says consumers in the EU pay an effective tax of 17% on food due to the customs union. This is what I keep saying to people, we'll pay much less for food if we get out of the EU. And the main benefits are to the poorest, because the poorest people are the ones that can't afford food and go to food banks and everything like that. So if we can cut the price of food, they'll be better off. But it seems this equal payment kind of thing is, people just mouth it. They don't do anything to actually fix the situation. The second article I'd like you to have read out is Life in the SNP's Party State. It's by Jill Stephenson in Think Scotland. Certainly Think Scotland's a more pro-conservative end of Scotland, but there again, about a third of Scots tend to be conservative in their outlook, if not more in fact. So, but I think some of the stuff raised in there, I mean, she's talking about the problem of a named, what was it? I can't remember what it is now. The named person scheme. Basically, the named person scheme is one where they want to control the kids, basically. But she points out some real major problems in just that named person scheme that we're talking about. But she also points out to things about happening in education and the justice system and everything. And it looks like the SNP wants central control. They want to control everything. They don't want you to have any control. And I would hate an independent Scotland to be run by the SNP. I think Scotland would be dead as a country, to be honest with you. SNP haven't a clue what to do. And all their ideas end up with the elite SNP members being the bosses of Scotland. They don't want to give power to the people. They're taking power away from the people all the time by reducing funding to the councils, where we used to have some local control. Now we're losing a lot of that local control thanks to the SNP. And so you don't even want to read it. I mean, I was quite upset when I read that. I mean, and I totally agree with what she's writing there. And then the third article I'd like you to write is Dissecting a Deception. It's just that I believe Nicola Sturgeon is very good at deception. She's not an outright liar, but she will pick figures to prove her own points. And these figures usually are not accurate figures as such. But I can give you an example of that. When I wrote to Nicola Sturgeon saying, why are you so... Because I was concerned the fact that she said, if we get an independent Scotland, we will be in the EU. And I wrote to her and saying, look, if we get independence, why are we then going to give away that independence to the EU? Because they'll control things. And she wrote back saying, well, she said, you know, I mean, the EU is by far the largest exporting group of countries that we sell to. We need them. Otherwise, Scotland would be badly off. We need to keep exporting to the EU. They are by far our biggest trading partners. But I later examined that, and it was true. They are the largest trading group, but that includes England, because the UK is still in the EU when she was saying all that stuff. But of course, England, we now know, on their own, take 2/3 of all the sales that go to the EU. So in fact, what actually goes to the EU, they're probably the third largest trading bloc. England's by far the biggest, the USA is the second, and then the EU comes in third. And from what I'm seeing, we're seeing declining sales to the EU, certainly in the UK anyway. So, and also, in that Dissecting a Deception, I'd like you to scroll right down to the bottom, because I just looked a few minutes ago, the last comment in there is talking about the possible English reaction to Scottish independence. And I've been saying this for some time, that I'm quite concerned about the fact that I think England's going to be putting two fingers up to Scotland if we get independence. And I think we could suffer very badly because of that. And he's got much more up-to-date knowledge than I have, but I lived in England for 5 years and travelled throughout England. And I mean, there's only an odd comment about me being a Scot. I was accepted everywhere I went, very generously, and had no problem with anyone at all. I don't think Scotland hardly ever came up, in fact, you know, apart from maybe when there was an England-Scotland football match on. So, you know, I think what he's saying at that end, because that's a Scot that's now moved down to the south of England to work, and he's now commenting on the reaction he's finding down there with the English people about the Scottish independence. And I think you need to be aware of that, because all your highfalutin ideas won't work in practice if the people on the ground don't come through. So, if you read those 3 articles, I think that before the election, I think that would be useful. Also, as I can say, from what I've seen, the Brexit party under Farage has just this disaster, basically. His idea of, you know, I mean, his politics as usual is Farage. His scope about things must change. I mean, he's not changing at all. In fact, I think he's made a very bad decision. He should have stuck to change politics for good, vote Brexit, and gone and sat in every single seat in the country. But because he's chosen not to do that, I think he's just lost a lot of support all over the place. So, and I say the latest poll I saw was that Brexit was on 3%. Roughly on 3%, they're a non-entity as far as the election goes. So, my suggestion is if you want Scotland to remain in the Union and be continuing to be part of the UK, you can really only now vote for the Conservative Party, because if Labour get they won't get a majority, but they might get a minority government, and with the SNP they give them a majority position, a bit like the Conservatives and the DUP have been working, then we're going to get a Corbyn government, and Corbyn government would be a total disaster, any which way you look at it for the UK. So, you can't, you can really only vote Conservative if you want to remain in the Union. And equally well, if you want to get out of the EU, again, the only choice you've got is the Conservative Party. I mean, if you really can't vote Conservative, try voting Brexit. But to be honest, Lib Dem, all the other parties are anti the British people, essentially, as I see it. I mean, I've been covering Brexit for years now, and I'm disgusted with what's been going on. I mean, totally appalled. So, anyway, so I'm not going to predict the result because I haven't a clue how Britain's... I mean, I'm out of touch a bit, I suppose, with Britain, but I mean, keep studying Brexit stories every day. I don't put them up every day because I'm just so sick, fed up with Brexit. I just wish it was over and done with. But there again, I mean, I'm covering it because I covered the history of Scotland, and I need to keep covering it because it's a major factor in Scotland. So I'm just doing my day job, you might say, by covering it. But I would rather not cover it, believe you me. Okay, so there you go. That's my advice to you all. I hope you'll read the 3 articles. I think they're quite interesting and certainly make you think. Whether it'll change your view or not, it's up to you, really, at the end of the day. But say my recommendation is vote Conservative. And I'm not sure that tactical voting is going to do much, but if there's a tactical vote that might ensure the Conservatives will get the seat, then fair enough, do whatever you need to do. But I would rather just vote straight. I think this tactical voting can rebound on you badly, So, there you go. That's my recommendation for the elections on the 12th. So I hope you'll take my advice and vote Conservatives. But if not, no hard feelings. Okay, nice talking to you again. Cheers.